Our final inductee is a legendary figure, affectionately remembered as the matriarch of Wilkes County, a visionary woman who spent her life fiercely protecting our history and developing our culture. Affectionately known as Miss Annie, she was a force of nature who believed in filling the lives of local children with grand, wholesome adventures. Whether she was leading a march down the Over-Mountain Victory Trail, teaching generations of children how to swim, or loading buses of high schoolers to experience the museums of Washington, D.C., she led with an unshakable, active faith. As a brilliant educator, she went on to serve as the arts coordinator for Wilkes County Schools, designing an integrated cultural arts curriculum that still enriches our classrooms today. Her passion for preservation quite literally reshaped our landscape. She was instrumental in saving the old jail from becoming a parking lot, and she successfully lobbied to place 10 downtown buildings on the National Register of Historic Places, paving the way for the Wilkes Heritage Museum. Perhaps her most vibrant gift to us came in 1962 when she founded the Wilkes Art Gallery, creating a lasting home for creativity that still inspires all ages today.
I will describe Annie Winkler as a mover and a shaker. When we moved here from out of town, at that particular time, the community college was having artists from other places to teach classes to adults. And all of a sudden, all of these people got really interested in art. We formed an artist league. We needed a place to show our art. Annie stepped into the picture. She opened up her house, her basement and her parlor, as she called it, to exhibit our work. Annie wanted us to have a gallery, and so she managed to get it done. And we had exhibitions there. She urged us to bring her our work so she could take it to different places around the county, which we did. And she would take these paintings, took them to what I call the Old Y. They were exhibited there, the hospital, at the college, any building that she could find that would let her hang them there. She was really, really pushing. But all the time, Annie was in the background doing her thing.
Saying no to her was a toughie. And boy, she was just quite the force. From her house, it moved eventually to the space at the old library or old post office, which is currently there. This is a state-of-the-art facility, and boy, from the infancy in the early 60s to now, we've really benefited from her power. She was never the artist herself. I mean, she just shared her drive to teach and share and motivate. She was a mover and shaker as far as getting exposures for the arts. She introduced a lot of folks and got many people started in new art.
Annie Winkler. She served as my guide, introduced me to Wilkes County. She told me wonderful stories about Wilkes and the people. Bless her heart, I owe her so much. I fell in love with Wilkes County.
Annie Winkler was one of the early workers and historians back in Wilkes County, back before history was really considered a big important asset. I became acquainted with Annie Winkler through working with the Over-Mountain Victory Trail. And the Over-Mountain Victory Trail was enacted by Congress as a National Historic Trail in the year 1980. And Annie Winkler was one of those early workers here in Wilkes County who made it happen. I had that common bond with Annie Winkler, that we both were enthusiastic about history. That led me to do such things as work with the Wilkes Heritage Museum project that took place about 20 years ago. So I know those seeds that Annie Winkler planted had a bigger mission that I didn't even realize at the time. Her drive and interest in history led me down that path, but Annie Winkler was one of the pioneers of Wilkes County history.
We just looked up to her because she was working so hard, and she really made some people here really turn into really good artists. There were people who had the ability but didn't know how to go about it or what to do with it. And I think with her urging, they did.
To know now that she made it happen for us for it to be still being very viable now. When you go to that gallery, I mean, she can't help but be proud, and that's a byproduct, I think, of some of her energies.
She would be like the muse. She would whisper in somebody's ear and get them turned on to history. She would whisper in somebody's ear and turn them on to art. And although she may not actually do it herself, she would inspire others to do it.
Please join me in honoring a monumental pioneer of art, history, and education as we induct the late Annie Finley Winkler into the Wilkes County Hall of Fame. Accepting on her behalf is Brooke Horn, director of the Wilkes Art Gallery.
Well, I promised myself I wouldn't cry, but I've cried the whole night, so I apologize. Thank you so much to the Hall of Fame and for honoring and acknowledging Annie. I'm accepting on her behalf, but this award technically belongs to her family, and we'll hold it at Wilkes Art Gallery, and so we're happy to have that at our home. Thank you so much for preserving the legacy of incredible individuals here in Wilkes County. There were some incredible people here, and I'm so thankful that the Wilkes Art Gallery has been a part of some of their story, and that in return, Annie has been a part of that as well. Thank you to all who have helped me gather information on Annie. Thank you for those who have spoke on her. I didn't know Annie like everyone else has. Have you ever loved someone that you've never met? That's who Annie is to me. I didn't know Annie, but I do know Annie. In 2014, I began working with the town of Wilkesboro as a designer. We started sketching. You saw some older maps of the old historic walking tour. And I was working on some new walking tour maps, and so I went out into Wilkesboro and I started sketching old buildings, learning about the history of each of them. And part of that project was to restore a new love for new generations here in Wilkes County. And so you might have seen I Love Wilkesboro, and that's where that came from. And so as I was researching some of those buildings in that walking tour and developing new maps, it was there that I first met the historical work of Annie. Andrew Carlton and Jennifer Furr and I, we began discussing in the next project. And so we were talking about preservation and how do we need to bring that attention to Wilkes County to make sure that the historical work continued in Wilkes County. And so as we further worked into I Love Wilkesboro, we started designing banners and we started digging into the archives. And we started becoming more a part of This Place Matters, which was with the National Trust for Historic Preservation. So I put on the white gloves and I started digging into those archives and those files. And I started looking at different pioneers of Wilkes County. And there was Annie, again, the matriarch of Wilkes. In 2022, after 12 years of serving as an art instructor at Wilkes Art Gallery, I accepted the position of executive director. Very thankful for that position, knowing there was a vital line in Wilkes County for our arts and those who advocate for our arts. And there was Annie, the founder, the art teacher, the nurturer, and the pushy pioneer of Wilkes. And I'm so thankful that she is part of my every day. It was through a dear friend of mine, you might know him as Ward Nichols, I started hearing lots of stories, her stories of children on train tracks, and she knew the train schedule. And so she timed everything exact so that these kids could get the most exciting adventure of the Industrial Revolution that took place here. And then she would get them off the track. And it was part of their field trips. She did these wild things that gave kids extreme and radical experiences of their county and where they lived. And the stories go on. Taking a bus of high school art students to Boston, and then Philadelphia, and then they went to Washington, D.C., and she did it alone. She did these amazing things. And so I'm so thankful to have learned through Ward and through many others who have come through Wilkes Art Gallery to meet the friend, Annie as the friend. So today, 64 years later, I'm in her footsteps, making sure that I'm ensuring her path of preservation of the cultural arts and for the visual arts and the performing arts in our county. Pursuing her mission for our county's youth, its special needs, and its underserved communities. And making sure that her vision and the development of the enrichment through the arts is followed through. And that also goes for its artists and its patrons that support Wilkes Art Gallery in keeping things going. Because that's our reality. And it started with Annie. So I encourage you tonight, as you leave, if you didn't know Annie, meet Annie. You heard that she was part of the founding curriculum for Wilkes County schools. She was also a part of the first exhibition of art, children's art, that is on the walls in this very building. She founded a lot of our youth's art programs in making sure that the youth were heard through their processing of life through art. I have a few final words from a distant cousin who couldn't be here tonight, so I'm going to end with these words. And these are the words of Parks Reese. Annie Winkler was a force of nature with seemingly endless energy. She charged ahead on all sorts of civic projects, and she got a couple of generations of kids outdoors, riding horses, learning about nature, and exploring anything interesting. And I was one of those kids, and I was thankful for it. Though not always appreciating at the time, especially when I was given the job of shoveling horse poop from the day camp stalls the summer of my 3rd and 4th grades. But I knew to love it, and I now have fond memories. I learned to ride like a banshee, which has served me well on the ranches in the mountains of Montana. I have a box of framed certificates of merit and appreciation from prestigious places like North Carolina's Museum Council, the Wilkes Historical Society, and many more. She was full speed ahead, and less ambitious souls were sometimes rubbed the wrong way due to her unbridled enthusiasm. But she was an icon of the community and the county, and dozens of us children are better off for it. Due to my mother's intermittent illness, growing up, I lived with Annie's family and was accepted as a member. Annie, with the help of my mother, Edith Carter, and many others who started what has grown into the Wilkes Art Gallery. They displayed art in the living room, dining room, and the hallways of Annie's home. And I remember the family sitting down to dinner as perfect strangers walked through her front door to visit the Riverview Art Center. They wandered through the house looking at art as we ate dinner, and we loved it. Being inducted to the Wilkes Hall of Fame is so perfectly well-deserved. I wish she could be here in person. She would have loved to be here to see you all. I'm pretty sure her spirit is smiling. Thank you.